What's up, everyone, and welcome to another cryptocurrency market update. In these videos, you will learn how to use technical analysis to forecast price movements in your favorite cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and others. In this video today, we're going to be going through Bitcoin's price action as well as Ethereum, so stick around for both. Let's start off here with Bitcoin on the weekly time frame. So as we're looking at Bitcoin from a weekly perspective, we had this significant drawdown here. We had a bounce off of our light blue support zone that we talked about for this entire time we were up here. We said if we come down, this is going to be the area where we will look to potentially have a bounce. You can see we had a pretty weak bounce here, but a bounce nonetheless. We came down again and formed a lower low, but we didn't close below these key lows. This one here from May 17th and this one from January 18th. We came up, formed another lower high, and now we're coming down again. Now the question is, are we going to form a higher low? Now the other question is, are we going to push right through this light blue support zone and close below it? Because we've already bounced twice from this level. So now it's just a matter of, are we going to bounce a third time? This potential drawdown right here potentially was what we consider to be a liquidity run on stops, which is where the price goes down into a key low like these two here to trigger people's stop losses, so then the large players in the market can fill their positions without moving the price significantly. And so this is what we potentially see right here with the long lower wick of people buying the dip, and then the close way up here is, although we went below these lows, it was very short-lived, and we didn't wick below them significantly. We barely went below them, and then we came up. So potentially, if we form a higher low and then a higher high here, we could see the bulls change the trend and put this back into the bulls' favor. But if we do not, and we see a potentially something like a higher low here on the weekly time frame, a lower high the following week, and then a lower low, then we will potentially be looking for the bear trend to be confirmed here. Even though I don't really consider this to be a confirmed bear trend, although a lot of people would with the candle bodies, I don't because of the wicks of the candles. So I'm still waiting for a wick of the candle confirmed bearish downtrend here on the weekly time frame. So what I could end up seeing happening is we come down, we form a higher low, we come up, we form a lower high below this one here at 36.6, and then we come down and we form a lower low, breaking below this light blue zone. So if we think that might be the case, let's go down to the daily time frame and get some additional context here. So from a daily perspective, if we're looking at this from the daily time frame, we have an interesting development here. This support zone back here from our bull trend here in end of January, early February, where we had our resistance level right here, where the price went into, reject off of, and then went above and closed above, has been our support level that we've been bouncing off of about 9 times now. But if we look closely, this level has had one candle close below it here, but then the next candle closed back inside, one candle close again, back inside. We haven't had 2 candle closes below this key support level ever. So we might get that today. So that's an interesting development here because if we do, we might end up seeing in the coming days a rejection off of this level to take us lower. So we'll see what we end up getting here from the daily time frame. But in terms of resistance, we also have the daily pivot up here, which is up at about 35,000, and the support level down here at right around the light blue zone, actually, interestingly enough, and that's down here at about 28.8. So right now, we are looking for the bulls to either close this candle back inside to maintain this blue level as a support zone, or the bears to close below it, and then on a retest of this should be resistance. So let's go to the lower time frames and see what we're dealing with there. If we look at this from a 12-hour perspective, the interesting thing about this drawdown is we haven't had really a liquidity run from a 12-hour perspective. You can see we have a high here, drawdown, we never trigger the stop losses here. Another high right here, drawdown, never trigger the stop loss above here. High, higher low, equal high, didn't get this high, drawdown again, still stop losses sitting up here. we had one high right here that we grabbed, but that high didn't have much volume behind it. If we look, it's below average bear volume, so it's not like there's a lot of people that went short right here. So in my opinion, we still need some liquidity before we can get a sustained drawdown. Now, where exactly is that liquidity going to come from? I'm still watching these equal highs. Honestly, I am. And the reason for that is because of this increasing bear volume here and the fact that they're pretty close to equal highs. So there's stop losses above both of them. So I'm watching those. We'll see if in the coming week we can get a push above there to grab those highs and then potentially see a pretty significant drawdown thereafter. We'll see. We will see, folks. But nevertheless, let's go down to the lower time frames and see the near support and resistance levels we're dealing with. If we look at this from a 4-hour perspective, it's this gray level right here that we're rejecting off of currently. This is a level that we had our bear trend right here with a high, low, lower high, and then lower low. And then we came into this level here, had a small rejection, and then we came into it again. It looked like we were going to close 2 candlesticks above it, but we did not. We closed one above, back inside, one above, back inside. And then we reject down below it and closed below it again. So now it's resistance. And so it is unlikely, in my opinion, that we will end up closing back inside of this dark blue zone because in the next 3.5 hours, this candle looked pretty bearish, and this is a resistance zone for price. So we'll see what we end up getting, but that's something that I'm keeping an eye on. And then also from a daily perspective, I just wanted to say one last thing on Bitcoin, and then we'll go to Ethereum. Bitcoin is in the most bearish scenario it can be in terms of trend. We have the super guppy, which is expanded here on the bear side with the longer term EMAs above the shorter term EMAs, which are these dark blue ones down here, which are currently suppressing price, all of which is obviously suppressing price. Then we also have the Ichimoku cloud, which is in the most bearish scenario here with the cloud being red, the Tenkin, the blue line below the Kijun, both of those below the cloud, and then price below all of that. So this is the most bearish scenario you can be in. The interesting thing about these is they're starting to contract, so we might see the price rise into these kind of 2 lines in the coming weeks, and then potentially see a confirmed continuation of this downtrend. When this pattern plays out, the most bearish scenario or the most bullish scenario, you can see what the momentum that it carries with it. Right here we had that confirmation, and then boom, we go off to the races and ride the most bullish scenario up for, months, until right here the Tenkin, the blue line, crosses below the Kijun, and boom, you can see what happens after that point. The trend ends, and now we go into the bear trend. Now the cloud flips to red, and now we're in the most bearish scenario. So what do you think is going to happen? If we're looking at this from just the cloud perspective, most bullish scenario here, boom, sustained bull trend. Most bearish scenario here, next in line, boom, sustained bear trend is likely what's going to happen. And that's why I have these levels charted out down here, because I'm looking for where the price might potentially bounce from as we continue the downtrend lower. I do think the downtrend will continue lower, if this was not evident by that illustration. So let's go over to Ethereum. But before we go to Ethereum, I just want to say, obviously nothing on this channel is financial advice, and it's all for educational purposes only. But one thing I wanted to say about this is the way that I approach things like this. If I know that by and large the way that price should be moving right now is down, given this trending indicator, I'm looking for short opportunities. That's what you're looking for when you're in these scenarios. You can make just as much money on this bear trend as you can make on this crazy bull trend. So just keep that in mind, because for us to go from 31K down to 19K, I know it seems crazy now, but that's a drawdown of about 39%. So that's not an insignificant amount of money. So just keep that in mind, and keep that in mind. All right, let's look at Ethereum. So Ethereum from the 3-month perspective here, if we're just reading candlesticks, we can see that this last 3-month candle looks extremely bearish. This is a really long upper wick of people taking profits on this rise in price that we went up to about 4,400 almost. Since the 3-month open of this candle, you can see we've drew down basically the entire time, which is to be expected. If you look at the 3-month time frame and you see that candle, there's no way you can look at that and be bullish, in my opinion, in the short term at least. It'll take some time for us to form a higher low, and then you can go back up and see what you can get. But in terms of the 3-month perspective, the first support zone is going to end up being the top of this wick up here at about 1,400. If you look at this from a monthly perspective, you can see that we had what we consider a Darth Maul candle right here with a long upper and lower wick. This parabolic rise in price is completely different than all the price action we've seen for the past few years for Ethereum. So for people to think that this is going to continue when we rose from, $80, $90 to $4,300, almost $4,400, for that to just continue is pretty outlandish. So in the short term, what will likely have to happen is for us to go into a bear trend. There's just no way around that. And so that's what we just basically initiated on the monthly time frame. You can see we've set a high, and now we're coming down, and potentially looking to see a monthly higher low somewhere being set. Where I would look for potentially a monthly bounce would be, if not the top of this wick, the top of these two bodies of these candles, which is at about 1,400. So that would be where we potentially will see a monthly higher low if we get down to that level. And then if we go to the weekly perspective, we can see a couple things here. One, we have really two support levels here. We have the light blue support level, which is in the near term right here. This is where we have, this is not two bounces. It looks like two bounces, but we didn't actually set a low here because we didn't break the highs of any of these candles. We came down, we hit it. We looked like we were going to actually form a low here by breaking the high of this candle, but we didn't. This one's at 29.13, this one's at 28.90. Then we continued down. We did form a low right here because we did break the high of this candle right here with this white candle, and therefore we set our low. So we have, if we're looking at this from a trend perspective, we have a high, low, lower high, and now potentially what do we think we're going to get here? Potentially a lower low. It depends on what Bitcoin does though, because Bitcoin's going to move the market here. So if Bitcoin makes a lower low, Ethereum will certainly make a lower low as well. This support zone has only been tested once though, so it's potentially could hold again here for another test. If we look at this though, we bounced about 41%. So for us to come down and go to a new lower low, it is a little bit unlikely in my opinion. So let me revise what I previously said about potentially going to a lower low. If Bitcoin does, then we certainly will. But because Ethereum had a more significant bounce than Bitcoin, we could easily form a higher low here and then have a subsequent another weekly bounce and then potentially come down. So it looks something like this. So we would come down, we'd form our higher low, probably somewhere on this light blue support zone. Then we'll come up, form a lower high, somewhere below this low, or this high from 24.11. And then we'll come down and form a lower low potentially. So that would be a confirmed bear trend with a high, low, lower high, and then lower low. So that would take a few months to play out, but that's not unlikely in my opinion. Let's look at this from a 3-day perspective. If we look at this from a 3-day, ignore these levels for the moment. Sorry, I'm still on my draw tool. Ignore these two levels for a moment. We'll talk about those in a second. This is our resistance zone that we're rejected off of here. So if we come into this level again, we'll probably likely reject off of it again a second time. And the reason is because this is a 3-day level, so it takes a lot to move through one of those. So this is where we had a contraction period right here where the price was tightening up, and then we had a bear trend. High, low, lower high, lower low. Came into it right here, had 3 long upper wicks of people selling into this rise in price, and then boom, we reject off of this level. So now it's a matter of where is the price going to potentially bounce from. We have this daily zone right here that we will talk about. This is our support zone right now. It's this candlestick back here, this black candle from when we had our bull trend. You can see we touched it right here perfectly. Boom. Had a nice, really nice bounce off of that level. And then we came into this 3-day resistance level, rejected off it. And then from a daily perspective, we actually formed a confirmed daily bear trend. So this is where we had a high, low. If I move this for a second, you can see high, low, lower high in comparison to this one, and then lower low. So this is our main resistance zone. So if we do end up coming up in the next week to form a lower high, it could potentially be somewhere in this daily zone. Actually, let's see. This is at 2169 is the high. Yes, it could. It could still be inside of this zone. So we'll see what we end up getting here in the coming weeks. But right now we're just kind of chopping around on the daily time frame. If we go to the lower time frames from the 6-hour perspective, here's our first resistance zone for price. And this is this yellow zone right here from our bear trend right here. We came into it, rejected off of it, and now we're potentially going to come up into it again at some point and see what we end up getting there. From a daily perspective, this is what I wanted to say for ETH real quick. From a daily perspective, and then we'll finish off this video, is if we look at this from an Ichimoku cloud perspective, ETH just flipped to be in the most bearish scenario here. So ETH, just like Bitcoin, had the same exact series of events. So we went into the bull trend here. We had a nice run. We consolidated horizontal price action, had another bull trend right here emerge with the most bullish scenario. We rode that up until these crossed around the end of May, and now we're in the most bearish scenario. So now, with the most being in the most bearish scenario for Ethereum, it's likely that we'll continue the downtrend below this light blue support zone at some point in time, and we'll see where we go from there. The other thing is the Super Guppy. This was delayed versus Bitcoin because ETH was much more bullish than Bitcoin for a while there. This just flipped to be the most bearish scenario right here. You can see that with the EMAs. So in this scenario here, the light blue EMAs are the fast EMAs. They're the shorter EMAs, shorter time frame. The green EMAs are what we consider the investor EMAs, and those are the longer term EMAs. And those ones were supporting price on this rise in price. Every time we went into the green EMAs, we bounced. Bounce, 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 bounce. And then we didn't bounce right here. And now you can see as soon as we don't bounce, we come back into them and we reject off of them, reject off of them, reject off of them. And then every time we reject off of them, the EMAs are rolling over. And now the longer term EMAs, these green EMAs, are now these red EMAs. So now the longer term EMAs are above the shorter term, and that is very bearish. So now every time we get a rise in price, the longer term EMAs, the red ones, are going to suppress price. And so if we do get a rise into this red zone again, it will likely lead to a rejection down lower due to things like the Ichimoku cloud trend and the Super Guppy trend. So that's something to look for in terms of short opportunities. There's a lot of profit potential there. So keep that in mind. All right. That's all I got for this one, guys. If you like this video, give it a like down below and subscribe for future educational content around cryptocurrency and blockchain technology. And if you'd like to get 24/7 unlimited access to all of our trading ideas related to Bitcoin and Ethereum, like we talk about in these videos, and we used to talk about our trading ideas on this channel, we've moved those trading ideas to a dedicated Discord channel that you can subscribe to called Leutheria Signals. And if you'd like to get access to that, you can send an email to team@leutheria.com. There is a description of that in the description below with the email address if you'd like to send an email there and join our group We would love to have you, and you can learn how to further forecast price movements in your favorite cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum. And so check it out. And until tomorrow, onward and upward.